Welcome back to another episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Foley from Midway Independent School District PD in Texas. He has 20 years experience in law enforcement. Actually started as a dispatcher, which I think is really interesting, and now has been the chief of police for the last year and a half. Really looking forward to having him today. So welcome to the show, Chief Foley. Thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so give us a little bit of background on you. You started as a dispatcher, which I always find to be really interesting. And I actually find that chiefs who started with that background have kind of a different perspective on different roles within the organization because you were a part of that. So, how did you get started in dispatch? And then tell us a little bit about your career the past 20 years.
Yeah, sure. So me getting started in dispatch was actually just uh, help from a family friend. I had recently was working for a company that did away with my position and was telling me that I couldn't work from home anymore. I had to go back to the office. Well, the office was 100 miles away, so I had to quit my job. And it was actually my girlfriend at the time. Her dad had a lot of connections with the sheriff's office, and he said, "Go up there, talk to them. They have a job, interview for it." And I had no idea that the job even existed. I just went up there because he told me to, and I got the job. Um, and you're right. It does. It's good. It's a different dynamic, and it's a different way to approach getting into law enforcement, because a lot of people, they either start in the jail or they just come in cold as wanting to be a police officer and go straight to the academy. And doing that, it gave me another perspective of law enforcement and of what the police officers are dealing with on the street from the dispatch side of it. You see a lot of officers can get pretty snippy with dispatchers on the radio. And I never really had that problem because I knew what the dispatchers were dealing with while I was out on the road. And they got a lot on their plates. They're dealing with a lot of things. And so I think it really helped me in a positive way whenever I did become certified and became a police officer on the streets.
Yeah. I think to me, it sounds like it showed you some empathy for other people and other roles and appreciation for the different roles. I think sometimes we don't understand how difficult or challenging another position is until you step into those shoes. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know. And then you have a better appreciation for it. I also think, and I would love your opinion on this, but I think the more I have allowed myself to step into different roles or learn different things that are maybe outside of my comfort zone, it's helped me to become really well-rounded. Do you think because you had that experience, it helped you later on in your career?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it helped me not even just later on. It helped me throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
Um, it makes you more a well-rounded officer. It makes you more aware of what's happening within the department and of what all those cogs and gears going together, how they actually work. When an officer thinks that he's the only one in the world, you can get a little egotistical sometimes and forget what you're really there for. Knowing all those aspects and seeing what all happens, you get a better perspective of it.
Yeah. One of the things that you said to me offline, and it really kind of stuck with me, is that you said police have feelings too. And it was this conversation of the human side of law enforcement and, being able to be vulnerable and understanding that you are human. Did you walk into this career always like feeling that way and being really comfortable with vulnerability in the human side, or was that something that you learned over time?
I did not go into it feeling that way by any means. Yeah. I went into it. It took a lot of maturing for me whenever I became a police officer. And I joke around and tell people that 21-year-old kids shouldn't be cops. They shouldn't be trusted with that kind of responsibility because it is a lot of responsibility and it's a lot of um, weight on your shoulders that I didn't know how to handle that, how to deal with it. And so I didn't really deal with calls. I felt like I had to be the macho one, the in charge and the demanding one. And so it did not come off at the very beginning. I think one, working at the school helped out a lot, getting to see a different side of things. I had a supervisor one time while I was at the school tell me that I was being unprofessional by interacting with the kids and joking around with them. And I had to explain to him, like, you don't have to be like that all the time. Like, I'm opening up to these kids and they're opening up to me, and I'm able to solve cases that way. I'm able to develop relationships that way. And so it's very important to be able to let that guard down a little bit. I think a lot of what really got me there was I was involved in a situation that through that I was going to counseling for myself and actually talking to a counselor and actually being able to open up to somebody really helped me out a lot in realizing that it's okay. It's okay to open up your feelings. It's okay to be a real human being with these people. You don't have to be robotic and enforcer. So it did. It was a big learning curve and it took a lot of time for me to get there.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I grew up with this like shove it down, posture up, like build that wall, don't show weakness. And um, that really hurt me in the long run, and
Mhm.
I think when we start to have these conversations, and maybe there is one day where all jobs are taken over by robots. Today's not the day, so we have to understand that we're talking about humans, and if we're going to talk about the human side of things, we have to understand that people are going to have emotions. There are things that are going to impact us professionally and personally. And I really like that you said, like, it doesn't even have to be on like a mental health crisis. It can be, but it could just be as simple as how do you show up for the community or how do you show up for other people? Like, are you showing them that you're kind, that you're fun? Like, are you willing to relate to them instead of having that like robotic exterior, that hardened exterior? And I really do think that when you do that and people can relate to you, that opens up the doors for a lot of other things. And I didn't feel that way for a long time either. I was super guarded and I held people at a distance. As soon as I was able to bring that down and be like, hey, this is me, and have those conversations, I feel like not only was it freeing for me, it allowed other people to relate to me and come to me and have these conversations as well. So it gave them permission to also be human.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, it's being able to talk to, especially with the kids. I love the fact that I work in the schools, and I love the fact that I get to interact with these kids. Just a little while ago, we had a group of kids in here that were being talked to by principals and for some stuff that they were doing, and they were getting a little loud and a little bit rambunctious. In a bad way. So I just sat out there and I started talking to them, and they started asking me questions about trying to almost like trying to catch me in my own game of like, hey, if you had to pick one of us to be the one that did something bad, which one would you think it is? And I'm like, I don't look at y'all and just pick one. I'm looking at your actions and your movements. And like when I walked out here, pointed at one of the kids, you leaned over and you whispered something to him, and then he raises his hand and volunteers to get searched first. Like that's suspicious. That's weird. So I started looking at you, wondering what you were doing. Um, and by the time that I'm having this conversation, within just a matter of minutes, these six kids that were just yelling and screaming and being loud and whatnot are all sitting around me, and we're all having a conversation,
Yeah.
and we're talking and we're going over different situations and different scenarios. One of the coolest things that I found that has gotten me with this connection and opening up and being vulnerable is every year I teach a class, spend the entire day teaching 8 class periods to our class, and they go through about what different careers. They meet with different professions, and on my day, it's about being a police officer, what it takes, and we go through about 20 minutes of what it takes to be a police officer, and the rest of it, I tell them, ask me anything you want. I'll answer any question you have, good or bad. Even if I make the profession look bad, I will answer any question I can as honestly as I can. Explain to them that there's some things I can't say. And you get talking to these kids, and they've just got so many questions, and they're good questions. Some of them are a little silly, but I explained to him, like, you get pulled over by a police officer and he asks to search, you can say no. You'd be surprised how many kids had no idea that they can just say no. And,
Mhm.
talk to them and about what their uh, what their responses are and how they can engage with them. And it's worked. It has actually worked of getting these kids to respond to me better, respond to my officers better, even to street officers whenever they come into contact with them. I had a kid a while back that was just, I mean, he turned 18 and I'm a man and everybody's going to treat me like a man and respect me like a man. And he and I were really button heads, and we talked and had a conversation, and I tried to open up to him, and I didn't even know if it worked until the city police department calls me and said, I found some kids playing beer pong behind the truck stop the other day. And yeah, why you go to a truck stop parking lot, I have no idea. Well, they all ran except this one kid, the one that I was talking to and that demanded to be a man. And they said that kid was probably the most respectful one out of all of them. And he didn't get a ticket. He didn't get in trouble for it because he stayed, he was respectful, and he talked to the officers like he was supposed to. So it's working. It's
Yeah.
it's it's getting results for sure.
Well, I think to me, it sounds like those interactions are the ones that are going to stick with the kids long term, and how can we create more positive interactions with each other, with the community, because they're going to grow up and they're going to remember that, and
Yeah.
maybe they'll grow up and they'll want to be that. And I think
They-
that's inspiring.
Absolutely.
We know that people, at least right now, as we're recording this might change in the future, but people are not lining up around the corner to be police officers today. It's been a hard shift since, 2019, 2020 timeframe. We kind of saw that shift happen. And so how can you build relationships and positive interactions with the community? And maybe one day they're going to be like, wow, I want to be like that guy.
Right.
I want to do that. I want to have a positive. And the other thing I always try to remind everyone of too, and I don't think you have to work in school policing to do this. I think you can do this in any, community that you serve. I came from an environment when I was a kid where I didn't have positive influences. Like my environment was really hard. My parents were drug addicts. My dad was, incarcerated. And then when he got out, he was really violent, physically, verbally. He was in and out for like 10 years after that. And so those were my examples. Those were my like, what word am I thinking of? Not mentors, but that was my example of like what life could be. I didn't have anyone else who like came into my life really and was like, "Hey, you can be something different, or you could be something great." And so that is an opportunity that you guys have with the younger people. There might be someone who does go to school who was like me, who's like, "Man, like best bet I have is just to not end up in jail like my parents." Like bar
Mhm.
set really high, and to have someone come up to you and be like, hey, like, I care about you. Here's another option. You don't have to take that bad path. You actually can choose a different path for yourself. And I think that's inspiring to think that maybe you could change the trajectory of someone else's life, someone who didn't have really those aspirations for themselves.
Right. So you're right. And it does. Before I came to work for the school district, I was given an opportunity to go work for a private company. It was a rehab facility that specializes in first responders, and so I was going to be like a liaison for them. And I was kind of battling myself of do I leave the school and go try this new adventure that has no guarantees whatsoever. There actually is a lot of security, job security in law enforcement and working in the public sector.
Yeah.
Um, Go to the private sector, they can just get rid of you because it's Tuesday, you know?
Hmm.
Um, so I was given the opportunity to go take this job, and at the same time, the school district was offering me the job of coordinator of safety and security, which is what led me to building the police department. So I'm battling myself over which one do I do? Which one do I take? And I was at the grocery store and just doing my regular grocery shopping, and I look up and this girl is running towards me. She literally has walked away from her shopping cart with her baby that's still in the shopping cart and just comes up to me and gives me a huge hug. It's a girl that I had dealt with all through her high school career, that we would argue. She would go to jail. We would bicker back and forth. I'm pretty positive that she resisted arrest a couple times. And she buries her face in my chest and she just sobbing and says, if you hadn't have been on my ass the entire time that I was in school, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am today.
Wow.
And the fact that she associated her success in life with our relationship that we had, I didn't play every bit of a role in that, I'm sure, but the fact that I played a role in that at all was like, okay, I know what I'm doing. And it's not time for me to leave this yet. So I
Yeah.
obviously turned down the other job and stuck with the school. And it's been a blessing ever since. So yeah, it is. It's so cool to know that you made those differences. And it's because you were human. You weren't a robot. You weren't this cold pillar that is only there to enforce the law. Like reactive policing just doesn't work in the society anymore. I mean, it works, sure, you solve crimes, but you're not preventing crimes. You're not stopping them from happening.
Yeah,
So,
wow, that gave me chills. Like that is such an incredible story. And I've said this before, and people will believe things if you say it enough, right? So like as an example, for my own experience, there were so many people, my family included, that told me you're going to end up like your parents, like over and over and over again. And so that was my belief system. I was like, yep, like there's no hope, and to have someone else say, no, you can be something. Like I'm going to advocate for you. I'm going to fight for you. I would imagine that like butting heads that you guys had was because of care. Like you cared for this person and you wanted to see something better and you wanted to show that person that there is something better. And when you can reinforce positivity in someone, sometimes that's all they need. That's like that little glimmer of hope that they can pull themselves out of a hard situation. So that gave me chills and honestly like perfect timing, right? Like whatever you believe in, if you believe,
yes.
divine intervention or the universe or whatever, I mean, that's all the proof that you need that you're in the right place.
Absolutely. And it was, like I was saying, I was battling myself. Which one do I do? And I'm asking myself, I'm talking to myself, I'm praying about it. And then this happens just at the grocery store.
Wow.
And it was, it's like, okay, cool. And
Yeah.
answer received. I get it.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to talk a little bit about leadership. And, we talk about the human side of things, and that also applies to leadership. And I think sometimes when we talk about wellness and we talk about, all these different topics, whether it's training or wellness or whatever, it's always about officer or employee wellness. And we kind of forget that like you guys also need things. And it's almost like that oxygen mask analogy that, in order to take care of other people, you have to first take care of yourself. As a leader, how have you been able to manage the stress of the career? And, what is maybe some advice that you would have for either other leaders who are currently sitting in this position or people who aspire to be leaders to be able to have that longevity in the career?
One is don't eat yourself up with it. I meet officers all the time that their whole identity is being a police officer. That's what they do. They've got the blue line tattoo, they've got the stickers on the back of their car. It's everything to them. And those are the guys that are going to get burnout. They're going to just something's going to happen. They're going to get in trouble for something off duty. Um, and I think almost every officer goes through that at some point. Like I think you do. You're a new officer, you're excited about the career, you go through that whole scenario of stage of your life. I think it's important to have other resources and other avenues that have nothing to do with law enforcement.
Yeah.
Um, I mentioned earlier that my girlfriend's dad is the one that led me to go work at the sheriff's office. Um, he was also the director of my police academy, which that's always fun. If you want to go to the police academy, don't get engaged to the director's daughter. So, but one of the pieces of advice that he gave me is make sure that you have friends that aren't police officers. And being around him and being with his family, because his daughter and I were together, and so I was around the family a whole lot and around the house. There wasn't a whole lot of cops coming over. Whenever they would have barbecues or parties or get-togethers, it was other business people from the community that he'd become friends with in one capacity or another, or his church members, and so he had that ability to look at normal life. Being a cop is not a normal life.
Mm,
Dealing with the things that we deal with is not a normal life. So you've got to be able to associate and pull away from that, but like disassociate from it and pull away from the world of law enforcement and the things that we deal with in this job. Um, Cops are not good at releasing their feelings and releasing their emotions. So having someone who might be good at that you're hanging out with will be a huge benefit. If all you do is sit around and talk shop and talk cop talk, you're going to end up hating life. You're going to end up hating your career. I watch officers like that all the time. They become bitter and mean and just don't really want to hang out with them.
yeah.
Um, So it's important to have other things. And I tell people all the time that when I die, don't put on my stone that I was a police officer or that, here lies Chief Foley or whatever. Um, Told my family, I said, if I die in the line of duty, God hope that it never happens. Do the whole police honors. It's great. Have the viewing with me wearing my uniform. Said, but when they put the box on the ground, make sure I'm wearing blue jeans and boots because that was how I was. On my stone, I wanted to say that I was a good dad. I hope that I'm a good dad, um, good husband, something like that, because that's what defines me. It's not the cop, it's not being the police officer that defines me.
Yeah.
Because whenever I leave here, I want to be devoted to my family and devoted to my children, not devoted to my career.
I think that you saying that means that you're a good dad and you're a good husband.
Appreciate it.
To have that awareness of like this is my goal, this is what I want, that means that there's awareness and effort towards that. So I obviously don't know anything about your personal life, but I would imagine that that is true. And you had said that to me, and I actually, when we talked offline about this idea of like, how do you want to be remembered, it really stuck with me. I don't share a lot, with I try to also have, disconnect from work and life too. And but I was talking to some people who are close to me about this idea of like, how do I want to be remembered? And I'm with you. I hope that the work that I've done is impactful. I hope that it's important, that it helps people. That's why we're doing this, right? Like we have different career paths, but I think we both have similar, goals of wanting to make an impact for other people and help other people. But I really want to be remembered for who I was. I feel like I'm going to get emotional. I don't know why. But I hope that I'm remembered for who I was, not what I did. And even though that is a big piece of my life, I think that there are other qualities and things that I would like to be remembered for. So that really impacted me when you said that, because I was like, wow, like, we all want to get to the end of this thing and not have we're all probably going to have some regrets at some point, but not have any of these big regrets. Like we want to feel like we did a good job in our lives and that we showed up for people and that we're remembered for being kind and for being, a good partner. And so I appreciate you sharing that. And kind of to touch base on what you said before about your network of people. Um, I think that it's so important. So there's like science. There's someone that said like, the five people who are closest to you are your biggest influence, right? And so choose those people wisely. Like you want to make sure that the people in your circle are like good quality people and they're going to help you to, further develop yourself. But I also think it's important to have people who are going to ground you and who are also going to call you out when you're messing up. And I think that and I've done this before in my life too, where I did choose bad paths when I was younger. I did choose the path of least resistance and I tried to escape and
Yeah.
avoid and numb and I was hanging out with people and partying and not making good decisions. And I purposefully pushed everyone else who was a good influence out of the picture because I didn't want them to call me out on it. I wanted to live in this bubble where everyone around me supported my poor decision making and my bad habits. And I think sometimes we do that, right? Like we kind of push everyone else away and we surround ourselves with people who are going to enable our decision making or maybe that negativity or whatever it is. And I think it's really, really important to have people who know who you are and who are going to grab your shoulders and shake you a little bit and be like, hey, like I know you and this is not you and this is not good. And like you need to bring yourself back down to, this grounded place. And it's really valuable to have different perspectives and different ways of thinking about things. Like I don't want to surround myself with five other me's. I'm with me enough. Like I know how I think, I don't need that. I don't need people to just like support all my decisions and tell me I'm doing great. I need people to challenge me, to give me different perspectives and to tell me when I'm messing up. So
Mhm.
that's what I try to do. I try to remember that of like, okay, who are the five people around me? Are they positive? Are they good for me or not? And then, try to build that strong foundation.
Absolutely. It's for me, it's my sisters are very, very quick to tell me if I'm screwing up. Um, but I also my lieutenant that works directly underneath me, he's a very opinionated man. He will tell me his opinions and he tell me if he thinks I made a wrong decision or a good decision.
Yeah.
And then also I have another guy that works for me that um, prior to him retiring from his main career and coming to work for us, he was the top administrator in his department that he worked for. And so, and for a long time he was. I've been a chief for a year and a half. There are days that I sit back and go, what in the hell am I doing? Like, I doubt myself and I wonder if I'm making the right choices and the right decisions. But I'm lucky in the fact that I can reach out to those two individuals and they're going to give me their honest opinion. They're not going to try and fluff me up because I'm the boss. They're going to give me the honest opinion. They're going to say, okay, this part was really good in what you did. This part could use some correcting.
Mhm.
It's good to have those kinds of people. It's like surrounding yourself by a strong cabinet of members or administrators that are going to help build the entire program, not just build themselves.
Yeah.
And it's helped out a lot. It's helped me get new perspectives on what I'm doing as a leader and as an administrator, and also helped to either reassure my decisions or show me new ways to reach goals.
I think the important part of that, and I don't know if you agree, but for me, it was identifying those people who want me to win, who I know like genuinely want me to win, and who I trust.
Mhm.
Because you don't want to take the opinion of just anybody, right? Like there are people who want to see you fail, actually, and I think the higher up you go, the more you start to realize the people who are trying to drag you down or the people who are like on the sideline still cheering you on and want you to win. And so finding those people who you trust and who want you to win, I think is important. But the other thing, and I don't know if you realize this, that I saw in what you just said is this level of vulnerability to say, I'm the chief, but some days I don't know what I'm doing and I question myself. And then having the ability to go to people who you do trust and be vulnerable and be like, help me out here, tell me where my blind spots are, help me see, kind of the clearing in the forest here because I kind of don't know the way out. What is your opinion on vulnerability?
It's important to have. You can't be if you tell yourself that you're not vulnerable, if you tell yourself that you don't have doubt in yourself or you don't have feelings, you're lying. You're 100% lying. Um, Another piece of advice that I got was actually from my father when he was teaching me how to drive. He said, "The day you think you know everything about driving a car, you need to hang the keys up because you're done. You just become too full of yourself. The
Mhm.
day that you know everything about being a police officer, and the day that you know that there's nothing else you can learn, you need to just go ahead and take the badge off, put the gun away because you're now a danger to yourself because that kind of ego and cockiness is just going to get somebody hurt." You have to have that level of vulnerability. You have to be able to talk to people, talk to your peers, and learn from their experiences as well as your own experiences. To one, it shows your people, especially as a leader, that you're human, that you are willing to show that you did something wrong or show that you acknowledge that there's areas of improvement that you can work on. Um, Obviously, you don't want to just be a complete failure at everything, but you got to show them that you realize you're not perfect also, and you realize that you're still learning as you go. Um, I think that it builds that bond and that connection. I tell people that some of the best advice that I ever got on how to be a supervisor or an administrator or a leader is learning from the bad ones. Watching the bad supervisors and experiencing them, I learned more about how to be a good supervisor. Um, and part of that was just being able to talk to people, being able to let them talk to you and open up to you. And it's like, if I have a guy that's feeling bad and or having a bad day, I'll go talk to him. I had one that was not necessarily doing bad, but he was just had a couple things like it seemed like there was something going on. Like he was having a bad day or having a bad week or whatever, just the way that he was interacting with me. So I drove out to his office and I sat down and I'm like, dude, let's talk. What's going on? Like you're kind of your attitude is affecting your job over here, like, but that's not normal. So let's talk about it. And we just sat there and chit chatted. Like there was nothing really important, nothing really bad. He was stressing out over some stuff at home, and it was just minor stuff. It was like someone in the family had a car wreck, and now they got to go buy a new car. So it was that kind of stuff, and it's just those things piled up on him, and I allowed him just to sit there and talk to me about it. It it shows that there's more than just there's a bigger goal here than just the job. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not here just to do a job every day and then go home, or I'm not here just to make sure that nothing bad happens. I'm here to build people. Like, let's
Yeah.
make sure nothing bad happens. Let's get the kids home safe. Let's get the teachers home safe. Let's get ourselves home safe. But also, I don't want you to be the patrol officer or the SRO for your entire career. Let's teach you how to do better things. Let's specialize in something. Let's make you that subject matter expert so that you can move forward and not work for me for the rest of your life. Go run uh, your own department.
Yeah.
My lieutenant, the one of the local police departments had an opening for a high ranking supervisor, and I looked at him. I said, "You going to go to it?" He's like, talked to him and asked him about it, and turns out you have to have a bachelor's degree to go work there. He was one class shy of completing his associate's degree to get into a bachelor's program. I'm like, take the class, dude. Like, take it. He's like, I don't know. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. Like, go take it. Go make yourself better and more marketable to get out of here and go. You could have your own department. Like, we could both be running departments on other ends of the town, and like go do it. So he just finished his class for his associate's degree, and now he's looking for a school to go to get his bachelor's. So I'm
That's
going to push him to get his master's degree also. So we'll see how he likes that or not.
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to touch on. And one of the things is I think when we can open up and we can have conversations about things, it gives other people permission and it makes other people feel normal when we can talk about some of the things and some of the challenges that we go through. I think for me, and it's really interesting, I think we all evolve, right? Like again, I was not like this always. This is something that I've learned over time. But I thought, you know, I thought that if I gave the perception of perfection and that I had all of it together and I was the expert, I knew everything. I thought that if I like had that kind of like stature and I walked into a room and that I would have like respect and like people would want to follow me and all these things. And I realized over time that it's so disconnecting and it's so isolating when people look at you and you have that like I'm perfect, nothing bothers me, because we all know that like things bother us, right? So if I looked at you and I had this conversation with you today and you're like, "Yep, I'm perfect. Everything's great. It's been smooth sailing, like nothing affects me, like I'm like a duck, just rolls right off." I'd be like, wow, I can't really relate to that at all because my life has been peaks and valleys. Like things have been hard, up and down, all the things. And so it's really isolating. It's really disconnecting. I think that if we're going to talk about building culture and teamwork, and we're going to talk about wellness and like giving people permission to not be okay sometimes, like when things happen and like that impacts you, normal because we're human, right? And I think that I did the people around me disservice earlier in my career by trying to give that perception of perfection. I also agree with you that developing ourselves is also a part of growth, of course, but I think that's a part of wellness. I think that that helps us to like get excited about things. Like how can we develop ourselves? How can we develop the people who work with us? How can we encourage everyone around us to be the best versions of themselves? And I think that's exciting because one day you're going to leave this career and you're going to know I helped these people to get where they are. I helped to develop them, and that's rewarding. And then they're going to have that experience of mentorship, and then they're going to want to do the same thing. So it's this ripple effect that happens over time. Uh, I did want I did want to talk a little bit about wellness, and you shared a story with me, and I have a point to this because I thought of things when you told me this, but you shared a story with me about an event that had happened, and kind of the impact that that had later on. And so I was hoping that you could share the story because I don't want to put the words in your mouth, but you could share the story and then I'll kind of follow up from there.
Okay. So I had an officer that was he was driving down the road one day and he rolls up on a car crash. And when he gets out to check on the car crash, there is an 18 wheeler that's laid over on its side, and then over in the ditch is a car that's just completely mangled. And he goes into full police mode of checking on things, getting things ready for this crash report, and just being prepared. And he goes over to the car that's in the ditch, and it is driven by one of our former students, and she's deceased inside the car. And he just keeps on going. It's our job. We got to keep going. There's a mission here. We've got to meet the mission, and that's not the time to be vulnerable right there on the side of the road. So he goes through it, calls me, lets me know what's going on. I'm like, okay, cool. It's terrible, but let me know if you need anything. So when he gets back to the office later on, I'm talking to him. I'm like, are you good? Are you okay? He's like, yeah, man, I'm good. He's like, everything's fine. It's cool. I'm like, okay, sounds good. Like, if you need anything, if you need to talk to anybody, let me know. He goes, nah, it's part of the job. And he goes on like that for a little while. Everything's fine. And he, I check in on him and I talk to him. I'm like, you still good? Everything's good. And he goes, yeah, everything's good. And he didn't really have a relationship with this student. Didn't really know who she was, but it's just a fact of there's a deceased person. So fast forward a few weeks, and his child is out playing and falls and fractures an arm. It's like all the emotions just hit right there. He gets a phone call. There's been an accident. Your child is hurt. It's like it all floods back to him. Like he sees this this car crash all over again, and now it's personal. Now he's getting the phone call that his own child is hurt and that there's a problem with his own child. And it's like he says that it's like everything that I didn't feel at the time or that I told myself I didn't feel just kind of came flooding back right there. And it's it's why it's important to talk about that kind of stuff. You can hold it all in. It's like I tell people all the time, you need to talk about your problems because you're going to hold it all in and one day you're going to blow up. And it's not going to be a blow up in a good way. So it can hit you and you don't know how it's going to hit you. You don't know how it's going to come across and you don't know what event is going to trigger that wave of emotions to come out. And that event might trigger the emotions at the absolute wrong time. So be vulnerable, talk about what's going on, let people know what's going on in your world and what issues you have or what feelings you have. Because if you don't, they're going to come out one way or another because they have more control than you do. And um, sorry, your emotions are stronger than you are. And if you don't control them and you don't talk about them, they will come out at the wrong time. And it can be dangerous for you and it can be dangerous for everybody else around you. Whereas talk to somebody about it. Like allow other people in your circle to help you with those feelings and you become healthier and stronger and a better human being, not just a better police officer, just a better human being in general.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's this conversation of like proactive versus reactive. And again, I shoved everything down. Like I know why people do it. I understand it because I did that, and like I know that it's easier to do that. It's easier to not deal with it. It's easier to be like, I'm good, everything's good, I'm fine, I'm strong. And it's never a question of if you're strong or not. Like two things can exist at one time. Like you can be vulnerable and strong at the same time. It's not one or the other, right? And I would actually argue that being vulnerable is way stronger and more courageous than just shoving it down and not dealing with it. That's the easy part. Like, it's so easy to go drink it away. It's so easy to like scroll on Instagram for 5 hours because you don't want to deal with whatever's going on in your life. Like that's the easy thing to do, right? But one of the things that is has been a little disheartening sometimes, is this conversation that I have where a lot of people almost feel like they've given up, and this is like organizationally, right? Where it's like, well, people aren't going to use it anyway, so why should we even try? Or people aren't going to talk to us anyway, so why even do anything? And I think that this story is a really, really good example of, someone who maybe didn't need it at that time. They were like, nope, I'm good. Everything's good. Like, you know, I'm
Yep.
fine. I'm going to keep going. And I think it's easy for us to look and be like, okay, well, he's saying he's fine. He's not going to use it anyway. So why even try? Why even try to support these people? And then a couple weeks later, now that person needs something. And so it's so important, I think, for ourselves to be proactive because to your point, we don't want our lives to blow up. There's so many analogies. They talk about the backpack, talk about the balloon, letting some air out of the balloon. So whatever analogy works for you, but how can we proactively offload some of those things so that we don't completely combust? And then organizationally, how can you build that culture? How can you have an organization where you support each other, you help develop each other, you're vulnerable with each other, you have these conversations to offload those things, but also if and when someone does need to talk about it, they know that there's a safe space to go. There's no question of like what they can do or the resources that are available to them because organizationally you're proactive. And so just because someone doesn't need something today doesn't mean that they won't need something tomorrow. And it's important that we're able to like catch people when they like, I'll put it in quotes, fall or they need those things. So I'll get off my soapbox now.
It's all right. Preach away. So,
I'm like, listen to me. No, I'm just kidding.
and that's the thing is, like, you say, listen to me, and you're on your soapbox, but at the same time, going to the vulnerability and the exposing yourself and letting people see that it's just like you said, nobody wants to listen to the perfect guy. Nobody trusts that guy
Mm,
because he knows everything. He's not going to learn anything. So being able to show people that listen, I screw up too. I make mistakes too. They're gonna you're gonna get a better reaction out of people. They're gonna build themselves up better.
yeah.
I don't know if it's the best response there or not, but
No, it's
um,
perfect.
yeah.
No, I think that, my hope is that even just you and I having a conversation today, like maybe this gives other people permission
Mhm.
to talk about stuff, whether that's leadership or,
Yeah.
someone within the organization being like, it's okay to talk about it.
Right. Yep.
Okay, so my final question for you is for the younger generation. What words of wisdom would you share with someone who is earlier in their career? If you could go back in time with all the knowledge you have now and you could speak to your younger self, what words of wisdom would you share?
Take it slow. You don't have to try and get everything done at the very front. A lot of new officers, they want to go, they want to get in the chase, they want to make the arrests. They want all the fun and the excitement, and like we said earlier, they allow it to eat up their entire life, where that's all they focus on is their job and the fact that they're a police officer. Make sure that you have time for yourself. Make sure that you have time away from work and completely disassociate yourself. Don't worry about work. Take your vacation time, take your sick time if you need to. Don't go to if you wake up in the morning and you're not feeling good, take that time off for yourself to reset and to make sure that you're good to go. Because if you continue to work through all that and you don't take that time for yourself to get away from all the things that we deal with as police officers, you're going to burn out and you're going to end up regretting a whole lot of different decisions that you've made throughout your career. And you'll be tired of it quicker than you want to be tired of it.
Yeah, I think, it goes back to what we talked about before. It's like, it's the long game, like how can we create longevity? And I know that sometimes there's these buzzwords that we use, but I heard something recently and I really liked it. It was like, how can we not just be here longer, but how can we be here longer and better? How can we
Correct.
have quality of life? And I think, so often we're like, how can we just get to the finish line? And then we're, seeing people like crawling there, like completely like burnt out and, just trying to get there and they're not fully like with it. But it's like, how can we get you to that finish line feeling as good as possible for as long as possible? And how can we create that longevity? And I do think that there's so many components that go into that, and we talked about that on the podcast. And so I really appreciate you coming on here and talking a little bit about wellness and, some of those tactical things that we can implement to create that longevity and that quality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I wish you all the best and hopefully we'll stay in touch, but thank you so much for your time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Have a great day.
Of course.